Confidence is the byproduct of taking acts of courage. You're going to get a point in confidence regardless of the outcome.
I want to start off by saying that you do not get what you deserve. You get what you will settle for. At least that's been my experience in life. And you are now going to be learning a little bit about what it is that's stopping you from feeling that you deserve more. Welcome to episode 9 of Trigger Proof, why we are so insecure and what we can do about it, with special guest Sean Stephenson. My name is Dr. Nima Rahmany, and it is a pleasure to be here every single week at Wednesdays at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, early morning on Thursday morning in Australia, and in the late evening in Europe, to share with you the principles of transforming that space between stimulus and response, to expand it so that you can have more self-confidence, so that you can have healthier relationships, so that you can be more confident in business. And most importantly, what I discovered as a chiropractor practicing for 18 years is that your inability to handle your triggers and understand where they come from and resolve them and to have mastery over them actually can impact your health and well-being. That's what got me into this situation in the first place, teaching this stuff. I was feeling quite frustrated at the fact that patients were coming in to see me for 18 years with stress-related disorders, and they weren't actually getting to the root cause simply by structural corrections. We made huge transformations in their nervous system, but usually everybody coming in was dealing with a relationship breakdown, was dealing with a self-confidence issue, was dealing with trauma that they are still holding on to in their bodies, and just the structural adjustments weren't cutting it to help them transform. So I basically went on a journey of self-discovery to help me with my messes, with my challenges, with my insecurities, with my low self-esteem, and I basically found a solution for myself. And it was one of those discoveries that I made on my recovery that made me want to actually teach as a full-time career and do the chiropractic work part-time. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about why we are so insecure and what we can do about it. And we have a special guest, Dr. Sean Stephenson, to talk a little bit about what the most common, most damaging insecurities are and what we can actually do about them. So the first thing that I want to ask you is to take an inventory of yourself right now and ask yourself the question, what am I most insecure about? What is it that I'm so insecure about in my life? And that's the first question. Number 2, how are my insecurities impacting my relationships, my health, and my job, my business? Because when we don't actually learn how to face the dragon and how to overcome the dragon, what ends up happening is we don't feel confident in our careers. You don't advance as much, you don't take leadership positions because you don't feel worthy of it. You don't have the confidence to do it. It affects your income. It also will affect the relationships that you are in, because we teach others how to treat us. And if I have a very low self-worth, low deserve level, then I'm going to be allowing myself to be in a relationship that isn't as congruent. That you'll notice, what I've noticed within our clients is that they get treated to the same level as they are treating themselves. So this is a global epidemic, this insecurity thing. And my goal on today's show is to give you the tools and the strategies and the support, if needed, to help you elevate your game. And that's what Sean Stephenson's here to do. So take a note. First thing I want you to ask yourself, what am I most insecure about? And if you're like most people, when I'm kind of scanning the clients that we're working with, looking at my own life, Number one, relationship stability. This show primarily helps people. The people that we work with are usually stuck in relationship limbo. Should I stay? Should I go? Is this person right for me? Am I really just settling? And that limbo space is just devastating for a lot of people. You feel paralyzed, you feel stuck. And one of the greatest insecurities that most of us have, from my experience, has been this question of relationship stability. We also will have insecurities when it comes to job or career securities. That level of insecurity, am I enough? Am I worth it? My deserve level, that will impact my level of career advancement, my income if you're an entrepreneur, your confidence in being able to help step up and solve people's problems. That's one of the major insecurities. And if you're like most people, you have an insecurity about money. Am I making enough? I'm constantly behind the 8 ball in it. Like, what story do you have about money? Body image is huge. It's not just you women out there either. Us guys, you'll be shocked to see how many men have body image issues that are kind of masked. We don't really talk about them because it's more spoken of with women. And then there's emotional intimacy. Our last episode, we talked a little bit about this. Emotional intimacy, the fear of actually telling the truth, of knowing how I feel and being able to communicate that to somebody else, and physical setbacks, which Sean Stephenson's going to talk a little bit about. Now, these things are not uncommon. They pretty much plague most of humanity, and when I was looking at myself, I had to find out the solution. I had to see how to get myself to the point where I can actually step up, be a leader, be a servant leader, and face my own demons, my own insecurities, and not let the ego drive the bus. I was guilty of the first pretty much half of my career was the ego driving the bus because I was covering up for paralyzing insecurities. And it wasn't until I took a few steps, of which I talk about in our intimacy upgrade program. In every single episode, I show you the path to victory, is to un-F your nervous system, clear that nervous system dysregulation, clearing all victim stories, and learning how to dance with your dark passenger, that little voice that says, you don't deserve it, you're not good enough. That little, what I call the dark passenger, which is pretty much your ego trying to protect your wounded inner child. Not understanding all of that leads to an expanded levels of insecurity. And when you don't get that right, businesses fail, relationships become toxic, and your health starts to decline. But when you start to clear your past victim stories and regulate your nervous system, you start to feel more present in your body. When you learn how to dance with your dark passenger and learn how to dance with that ego and be a witness to your ego and choose again and again and again and clear the guilt and the shame that you're holding on to, all of a sudden you develop a sense of understanding, not only for yourself, but the people that you once perceived as being monsters that have wronged you. Your parents, your ex-partners, the people who you feel that once you've had on this pedestal who've really hurt you, now you have a different perspective about them and yourself because you have developed a keen sense of understanding. And when you've learned how to dance with your dark passenger and you have a regulated nervous system, you develop what we love to see in our other people when we're with them. We love to spend time with other people. We love to be ourselves with other people. You develop this sense of authenticity, this sense of, I can now take off the mask. I can share my shame. I don't have anything to hide. This is who I am. And boom, now you have a sense of fulfillment, and what comes after that is a level of self-confidence. So confidence, I gotta tell you, is not a trait. It is a skill to master. So your insecurities and your dark passenger and all those wounds, it's a skill that one must learn how to master because it can come and go. So confidence comes from the conscious connection to incremental progress towards something meaningful. For example, This is my 9th episode. On my first one, I was absolutely terrified, extremely insecure, but it was stepping into the insecurity, stepping into that, those little voices in my head that said, I'm not worthy, the imposter syndrome, that I'm starting to now develop a sense of confidence. I can set up the studio, I can invite guests, I can have really just off-the-cuff conversations and not have to really worry about my insecurities because I'm channeling and I'm giving you a message that'll hopefully transform your life. So confidence comes from the conscious connection to incremental progress towards something meaningful to you. It's up to you to clear what's in the way of discovering what that is and going all in with developing it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our guest today. I met Sean Stephenson. Well, the first time I saw him, it was live. I mean, I've been following him on YouTube and his TED Talk for years. And it was in Phoenix when I attended the Genius Network's annual event in November, and he spoke, and I met him, and I just was like, wow, this little guy, he packs a mean punch. He's pretty dynamic. He's funny as hell. He can be a little bit dirty, which I like. Then when I went to the last meeting a few weeks back, we kind of sat next to each other, started chit-chatting, and here we are today. So I'd like to welcome, without further ado, I'm going to put on my headphones right now so that I can take away the echo and to see you. Sean, are you there?
I am here. How are you, brother?
It is great to have you here. Welcome, my good friend. And you're in Phoenix right now, and the weather seems beautiful. And you've been following
Arizona.
There you go. And you've been following the conversation so far?
I have. I actually have something to add, if that would be okay.
Oh, that's why you're here. I totally set it up. I just pretty much set it up for you to add to this. But what I want to start off, you don't need an introduction with many people, but for those of you who haven't yet seen or heard about you, why don't you share a little bit about who you are and why you do what you do?
Sure. So I think the things that stand out first are, why am I so little and what's this container all about? So I was born with a rare condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a brittle bones disorder, and it stunts the growth of my bones and makes them very fragile. So growing up, I used a wheelchair and have since for mobility physically, and I've had numerous bone fractures. So by the time I was 18 years old, I had fractured over 200 times. Something as simple as sneezing would break ribs, coughing too hard could break a collarbone, putting on a pair of pants too quickly could snap a femur, and had multiple surgeries as a kid, spent most of the time indoors in excruciating pain, and that's what took me on my journey to figure out my own mind, because
sorry about that. We're live right now, and there's an ambulance that just walked by. I don't want you to be interrupted at all. Go for it. Yeah, you're talking about pain.
Yeah, so growing up with all that physical pain, I became fascinated with how do you control your mind and your mood, and how can you create an internal reality of joy and peace regardless of what's happening externally. And from that perspective, I learned that I wasn't the only person on the planet that wants to figure that one out. And
just you. It's just you, Sean. Nobody else. Just you.
Just me. Yep. So on this journey, I've been sharing my findings, and I started as a professional speaker when I was in 1994. I was in high school, and I remember I got my first paid speaking engagement. I got $75, and I thought I was the richest man alive. I was like, I'm done, folks. I'm done. So I found out that I fell in love with sharing a message. And really, I was only asked to speak about what it's like to have a physical disability. But with time, that grew into, can you talk to us about success and confidence and aspects of life that everybody has to deal with? And, that was one of the things that I was thinking about as you were sharing your model and definition of confidence. I'd love to be able to share mine because it has radically improved the quality of my life. And I borrow it from one of my mentors, Dr. Paul Dombrowski, who is a brilliant man and a psychiatrist in Chicago, a buddy of mine. And he says that confidence is the byproduct of taking acts of courage. Confidence is the byproduct of the taking acts of courage. And so that means you're going to get a point in confidence every time you take an act of courage, regardless of the outcome. So if you go up and you ask somebody for the sale and you're a salesman, whether they buy or not, you get a point in confidence for doing that. If you ask somebody out on a date, if you walk into a gym and you're scared to do it because you're overweight, you think everybody's looking at you, just by the mere fact that you did it, you will gain that confidence point. And so when you meet people that are tremendously confident, it's not because they sat in their bedroom in the morning and just said, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident. No, they had to do things over and over, put themselves in what I call squirm-worthy moments where you're squirming. You're squirming. Yeah, you feel so activated, right? And when you survive, you condition the brain that you can handle squirm-worthy moments. And that's what I've built my life around. That's why I'm on a program like this to share my findings, because I find that when human beings do things that are out of their comfort zone, that are in that squirm space, it doesn't even matter how it goes, because who they are improves, who they are evolves. The confidence is something that I've had to develop in my business, in my love life, with developing friendships, with building my net worth and traveling the world and impacting crowds of thousands and reaching people online in the levels of millions. And all of that was through my own pursuit of doing things that made me squirm and not backing down and having those moments where you have a choice. You could either take the easy road and not take the act of courage and temporarily stay out of the discomfort, but then really you're mortgaging your pain over a period of your life. Or you could say, you know what, I want to pay off this pain. I want to show up with a balloon payment and really cut it down tremendously. And then when you do that act of courage, you take that act of courage, what you find is over the long term, you have less pain that you're mortgaging.
Do you notice that this is an ongoing process, Sean? It's like,
oh, absolutely.
It's not like you just cross the finish line. Like you have to do some scary crap, like week to week, correct?
Yeah. In fact, if you're no longer scared, you're playing safe.
Exactly.
If you're no longer scared, I know you're playing it safe. And so here's what it feels like to me, and everybody might have a different experience in their own paradigm, but for me, I take on a lofty goal, right? I take on something big, like, okay, I'm gonna find the love of my life, or I'm gonna write my first book and make it an international bestseller, or I'm going to build a podcast or get a television show, whatever it may be. And you take on that goal, and in the beginning, you feel the most amount of pressure because all those insecurities. And we should probably just take a time out on that one and say what an insecurity is.
Yeah.
And insecurity
what is an insecurity? Yeah, because you travel the world and you teach about insecurities. I'd like you to continue that story, but I also have some questions about, what is an insecurity? And when you have a moment to add that in, what do you notice are the most, we talked a little bit about these. These are just kind of run-of-the-mill insecurities that we have. But what do you notice are the most damaging insecurities?
Yeah, so I'll take on all three of those things. First of all, I will say that an insecurity, according to my professional and personal and humble opinion, is an insecurity is a feeling that you're not enough. You're not tall enough, smart enough, pretty enough, educated enough, wealthy enough, experienced enough, thin enough, happy enough. Good enough, right? So there's all these feelings of I'm not enough. And anytime you answer this question, I'm not blank enough, you are being driven by your insecurities. And so when these insecurities show up is usually at the beginning of taking on something new, right? Or going into a new situation is when they get activated. If you think of them as like lights and you have a button and you press them, the light goes on. And so when you step out of your comfort zone, that's when you hit the insecurity light. And so that's why I was saying, like, with all those goals of, like, let's say getting a television show, something that I've done. When I started with just the idea, my insecurity light was on big time. And I was thinking about all the things. You're not experienced enough. You're not connected enough on this, Sean. You don't have the background in television. All these things were just lighting up the board of insecurity.
Imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to be doing all this?
Sure. And so in the beginning, the pressure is the greatest, right? But then as you start to achieve success on any goal, what happens is I find that the pressure can start to diminish. And then when the pressure seems like it's almost gone, one of two things is about to happen. Either you're going to get a little cocky and start taking stupid chances and risks, negative risks with your position in life, or you get safe and comfortable and you stop growing. And so what needs to happen to avoid both of those things is once you start to achieve success on something and it starts to become easier and easier and easier, it's time to climb another mountain. There's a great quote.
It's time for you to get a little insecure, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's a great quote that says, beyond mountains, there are mountains. And you never get to the top of a mountain and say, that's it, I'm done, because there are other mountains.
Easy street.
Exactly.
It's time for easy street. So when things are getting so comfortable, this is what I've noticed in my life too, Sean, is that I reach a milestone, things get comfortable, if things get easy street, either two things happen. Either I create another challenge to climb, or I have a huge meltdown, toxic meltdown, and the universe kind of puts me in a position that says, all right, Nima, time to climb again. So it's like, Absolutely. It's one of those two. Have you noticed that happening with you as well? Or are you just
I'm so proactive in throwing myself into the deep end of the pool. But you know what? I'm always amazed by the beautiful universe to say, well, we thought that the deep end was not enough. We're going to put some ankle weights on you. I've certainly experienced that. And, I'm okay with that. I don't like it in the moment, but I know that my character, my resiliency, my thick skin, all of it has come from not having an easy life. If anything, I feel not sorry or pity, but I wonder how somebody who hasn't had major challenges really goes on to do great things, because where did they develop their muscles?
So tell us where your biggest insecurities were. You're married now, right? You have a lovely wife. You got a great career. You're doing well for yourself. Tell me about what you basically, the stories you were telling all yourself that you had to basically overcome. I mean, I can imagine what they would be, but I really want you to share them from your perspective.
Yeah, so there have been many. First off, let me just say that I've met hundreds of thousands of people in person at this point in my life, through my career, and millions of people collectively from the internet. And I can tell you, I haven't come across one yet that hasn't been impacted by insecurities. So that actually is a part of the equation of solving the problem, is admitting that it affects all of us. And I believe that insecurity is hardware. I think it's hardwired into us, but we'll come back to that at a later point. To answer your question about which insecurities have I had to overcome, the greatest, hardest, most challenging was romance. And, I feel as though there's three major damaging insecurities that I've had to overcome, and there are 3 major insecurities that I think the human race deals with. Do you care if I share that?
That's why you're here, brother.
All right, awesome. So the first one I think is the most damaging is believing that you don't deserve to be happy.
Okay.
If you
I'm gonna write that
believe,
down.
yeah, if you believe that you don't deserve to be happy, then anytime you start to get happy, the thermostat of your insecurities kicks on and cools you down so that you get back to not being happy. How do I know that? Because I've seen it time and time in my own life, but that one hasn't plagued me as much as I've seen it plague others, because I friggin' love being happy, and I'm willing to be happy when the shit's hitting the fan and it looks like there's no hope. I've kind of always enjoyed that island of happiness. But I remember I was on a date once with this girl, and I mean, it was the first time that I was really feeling like, holy cow, I attracted this woman who I didn't think would ever be attracted to me, and I'm in her bedroom, and I was in my 20s, and I was laying on her chest, and she was holding me, and she said, I can't do this anymore. And I said, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm not allowed to be this happy. And like all these smoke alarms went off in my head. Now, I didn't see that as a red flag to end the relationship, even though I probably should have at that point, because it was only going to get worse from that moment on. But my mentality was, at the time, I kicked into savior complex, which is like, I'll save you from your insecurities, and nobody can save you from your insecurities but yourself. And so I just remember saying, what do you mean you can't, you're not allowed to be this happy? And she shut off all communication, and that was really the turning point to the end of that relationship. Was I was in hot pursuit of that belief of hers that she wasn't allowed to be happy, and to this day I still don't know the depth of the damage and trauma that had that young lady say that to me. But that's the first one, is to believe
the first major damaging insecurity is the belief that I don't deserve happiness and fulfillment.
That's correct.
If we don't get that right, what happens? If we don't overcome that, what happens is we basically sabotage ourselves. You're in it like that partner, that you're in a great situation and you're like, wow, things are going great. I'm just going to mess it all up right now and just piss on it somehow.
Yep. And that shows up in any number of choices where you start saying and doing things more recklessly, and because you want it to end because it's too scary. I love to think in metaphors, and one of the metaphors that I enjoy is, if you think about, why is it that we don't just float off this planet? Like, why are we able to stand here on this earth and not just float away? What's the physics behind it?
Gravity.
Right. So now, why is it if you go to the moon, can you jump much higher with the same amount of pressure as if you jump here on Earth?
Gravity is 6 times less powerful on the moon than it is.
And why is gravity less than that on the moon than it is here on Earth?
We're getting it, Sean. We're getting into some complicated questions here, brother. I wasn't prepared for
All right, so I'll play the physics.
I'm getting a little insecure, but what I'm saying is, what I'm thinking here is that it's a smaller surface, so there's not as much power. Yeah.
There you go. That's as far into the physics as we're gonna go.
And that's as far as we're gonna go with the questions. I'm just letting you know that.
So here's the thing: the moon has a smaller size, so there's less gravity on you. The Earth has a bigger size, so there's more gravity. And if you go to other planets that are even larger than ours, it'd be very hard to walk, right?
Yeah.
And I look at that metaphorically as, the bigger your life is, the more responsibilities, the more obligations, the more reach and importance you have to others and the planet, the bigger your gravity. And then, of course, the more strength that you're going to have to develop to walk
responsibility,
on that
planet. Responsibility,
But what happens is, I find that instead of people wanting to increase their muscle base, they just decide, how can I go back to a smaller planet? How can I screw things up and leave this planet or shrink this planet so that it's not as scary, it's easier.
Things can be easy. Yeah, things can be easy. So it's kind of like Jim Rohn's quote, don't wish that things were easier, wish that you were stronger, wish that you were better. So it's like, so you've gone through, whatever you've gone through has basically, given you the mental muscle to be able to do what you're doing. And what you're saying is keep stretching yourself into scarier things. So this is the very first most of your kind of the most damaging insecurities. Can you
so I'm
talk
going to actually go up. So that's level 1. Level 2, that's even more damaging. So and that is, you don't deserve love. I don't deserve love.
I don't deserve love.
Yep,
so you see
I don't
that
deserve love from others or myself.
I don't deserve love. Yeah, and how does that show up if you don't really kind of keep that in check? How does that show up?
Yeah, well, so there's a, you don't take care of yourself. You don't let others take care of you. You don't accept help. You don't ask for help. You don't ask for advice. When anybody gets close to you and shows affection, you run away. Ultimately, you're not able to allow others or yourself to look after you.
Receive. You're not worthy of receiving. You don't.
Yeah,
receive.
It really blocks reception.
You cannot receive. So I want you to tell me, if you're watching and you can identify yourself with any of this, I don't deserve happiness, fulfillment, or I don't deserve love. I'd like to hear in the comment section, as you guys are, paying attention to this conversation, where does that show up in your life? Where do you see that happening? Okay, because that's big. I don't deserve love. So I don't deserve happiness and fulfillment causes me to run away from it and sabotage. I don't deserve love causes me to block receiving. All right. So this is pretty valuable stuff. What's next? What's next?
So let me show you how that one damaged me for years. And
Please.
if I'm being really truthful here and bearing my soul, I would say it still creeps in at times. That feeling that you don't deserve love will cause you to lash out at people who are actually loving you because you feel as though they're lying.
Yeah. Oh, damn.
Feel like
how could you really be real with me because I don't deserve what you're giving me? So, you then kind of go on the attack and you lash out. Yeah.
Yeah, and
definitely.
all compliments and care feel like they are manipulative or deceitful or untrue.
Oh my God, mind blown right now. You basically just you nailed it. You nailed it. Holy cow, that's exactly it. Any compliment, any act of love is seen as a deceit or a manipulation because I don't deserve it. If you have a fundamental belief that you don't deserve it, then everything is seen with suspicious eyes.
Mm-hmm. And
Wow.
how many times do we see this in relationships? I've seen it where I would go out on a date and I would give a woman a compliment and she would immediately get angry and be like, how dare you? You want something from me. You just want to use me for my body. And it's like, whoa. I was complimenting you for a compliment. But that's the thing. If you don't feel worthy of love, then everything can be an attack or a manipulation or a deceit. Or so that one's big. And the challenge also with not allowing some love in on yourself is if you don't love yourself, then you begin to lose respect for yourself. And then you end up not taking care of yourself. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then ultimately, the third and final one that we're going to talk about as a very damaging insecurity is I don't deserve to be alive.
Wow. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Sean?
Yeah, so it's almost as if, let's pretend for a moment that we're all in agreement that there was some kind of creator energy or creator in general. It's the feeling as though you slipped through the cracks and you weren't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to a grocery store and you see the produce guy going through and looking at all the fruit and it finds a bad fruit that's deformed and bruised and it throws that away, right? That's what you feel when you don't feel like you deserve to be alive. Yep.
That's you. Yeah. Wow.
And when you come from that space, you feel like you don't deserve anything. You don't even deserve oxygen. You don't deserve food. You don't even deserve to be looked at. You don't even deserve to be respected. Like everything drops away.
Sean, sorry to interrupt you. One of the things, because I've, working with people, with our clients, when we get to know what they're going through, we uncover their stories. This usually comes up on the other side of a shame, on the other side of something that they've done, something that they're holding in as a shame. We talk about this constantly on the show. This is a big one. I don't deserve to be alive, but that doesn't come from nothing. It comes from a series of, things from intergenerational trauma. But essentially what we're seeing is that I did this thing. And the shame of it makes me not worthy of being alive. Have you noticed that was it? Is because this insecurity of I don't deserve to be alive, I don't deserve love, I don't deserve, all of these come from my experience working with people, is the perception of shame of they've done something.
Not always, in my opinion. I think that is a huge part of it. But then there's also the feeling of you feel like you were born a reject. Because I felt that, like, I'm deformed and rejected. And so it's not something I did. But I definitely can relate. I have examples in my past where I did something, where I didn't do something that I should have. And then that brought the shame that then made me feel like I don't deserve to be alive anymore because I have failed as a human, right? I get that. But there's also this.
Yeah, in your case, you have a rare bone disorder and you just broke your bones 200 times growing up. And so I could totally see how you'd be running that one.
Yeah, and it's not just about the pain of all the breaks, but what kind of, and according to this insecurity mindset, not what I really believe, ultimately, but from this mindset, it's like, I am a burden on my family. I am a burden on my friends. I am a burden on the planet. I am slowing down the joy and stifling the love on this planet by being here.
Yeah, that's devastating. And when you have this and you don't work through this one, self-care and looking out for yourself and eating right, heavy in addictions, smoking, like everybody knows what they should be eating and exercising. But if you're running a story of I don't deserve to be alive, like it doesn't make sense. Why would I even do that? And I noticed that, Sean, when I in my chiropractic career for 18 years, I'm watching patients come in and I'm like, okay, so in order for us to get better results, you're going to have to start doing these stretches. You're going to have to drink more water. You're going to have, you're going to have to start exercising. You're going to have to stretch here. And I remember thinking to myself, talking to these people, I'm like, this is falling on deaf ears. Because if you are running a story, I don't deserve to be alive, and it's unconscious, then no, stretches or water or plant-based diet, or you're not going to want to do anything that's going to help nourish your cells. You're going to actually conscious actions to destroy yourself. Does that make sense? You're going to start to retreat from human connection as well. And that's why I am less concerned, because I've been a psychotherapist now for going on 18 and 19 years. And I am less concerned about somebody being angry than I am somebody being apathetic and feeling like, what's the point?
it doesn't matter anymore.
Because angry people, angry people actually take action.
Yeah, they do shit.
They do shit, but if you're just dissociated and running away, you're like going down a shame spiral. Those are the ones that, and which is exactly why when we talk about, to upgrade your intimacy, you need a community. You definitely need and we're part of the same mastermind group for that reason. It's like we share, it's like, okay, these are our challenges. And when I can sit down next to you and go, this is what's going on, we now have that oxytocin thing going and you can share your stuff. And we're like, okay, we got this together.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I could talk about some of the things that trigger our insecurities.
Please
so that
do. That's what we're talking about.
You can feel when is it time for the insecurity to kick on, right?
Yeah.
So I just came up with a small list of what I found can be the triggers, and you might want to write this down on the board if you like. But the quickest thing that I think triggers insecurity is tonality. When you are interacting with somebody, tonality snips the wrong wire to the bomb, and it goes off.
So you're talking about, so just to clarify, if you and I are having a conversation and then there's something in my tonality, well, I'll just be like, I'll be snippy or rude, and that'll trigger an old insecurity, like the way your father talked to you or your mother talked to you.
Amen.
Okay, got it. That's
so there's
exactly
tonality.
Yeah.
The second one I have here is nonverbal body language, specifically facial expressions.
Ah, yes. That'll trigger an insecurity.
Totally. And it can be as simple. One of my buddies, who's just a dear friend, he would not share with me any of his projects until they were done. And I just sat him down one day. I'm like, why do you always wait to the end to show me stuff? And I don't agree or disagree with what he said. It's just interesting. He said, because Sean, if you even raised an eyebrow of judgment, it would cause me to stop working.
So that's so interesting. So the facial expression when I'm around you will signify that I'm making a judgment by you, a judgment towards you, and that will trigger the insecurity of rejection. Yep. So the tonality and the facial expression through the nonverbals. So why is this important? This is why it's so important is when you're with your family, when you're with your friends, when you're interacting with clients in business, to be consciously aware of how things are landing for the other person, because these, like tonality, facial expression, body language, these are actually going to unconsciously trigger the other person because we're so unconscious of it. So to be aware.
And I want to make something clear, and that is, you don't want to walk through life feeling like everything's landmines. Like, oh my God, better stand this way, better show this facial expression, better use this tonality. You don't want to be paranoid about that, because the energy is what matters most. But these are the things that I find can still trigger. Another one that can trigger an insecurity is just a thought of the past. You have a thought of the past, and boom, you run an insecurity. It could be a shameful thought of like, man, I can't believe I did that. That was so immature. That was so rude. That was so mean. That was so inconsiderate. I can't believe I did that. And then that thought from the past is raced to the present, and then you go into that shame spiral, and all the insecurities. The insecurities are magnetic. One will grab another, will grab another, will grab another, and next thing you know, you're now feeling like you're a fat, ugly slob because of a decision that you made when you were 9, and it just attracted all the magnet energy, and now you're carrying all this weight. Right?
You're now gathering and collecting evidence to support that story of unworthiness and of you don't deserve to love, you don't deserve to be alive, that kind of thing. So, wow.
So there's a couple more. So thoughts of the past. The next one is thoughts of the future. We also name that anxiety, right? And that can be like, so I'll give you a thought that brings me some anxiety. And it doesn't need to, but it still does. And that is, I am working on a screenplay for a movie. And the movie is based on my 18 to 19 years. I always go back and forth on how many years based on was the first client or when I got my degree. But my 18 years of being a therapist, I've decided to take all the stories of where people are challenged and the things that I've seen them do and create these fictitious characters out of all the people that I've seen, removing all the identifiable details and making a movie out of the solutions that I found to working with all these people, because I feel like that would be part of my legacy. What if there was a beautiful movie on the planet that gets to outlive my lifetime? And so I'm thinking about that. I've been researching how to put together the movie. I've been writing on it. I've been working on it. And it brings me anxiety because it's a thought of the future of like, what if I quit on this? What if this beautiful dream that God has placed in my heart and calls to me every day, what if I don't fully realize it? What if I drop the ball? What if I try it and nobody likes it? And all these thoughts of the future of things, right? And that's horrible because it's triggering all these insecurities. Yep, who are you to say that you could be a screenwriter? Stay in your lane, Sean. Imagine the amount of money and time and energy that are going. What if your friends think it's ridiculous? Like all these things. So thoughts of the future can trigger our insecurities. And the last thing that I want to talk about that can trigger our insecurities are bodily sensations, both internal and external. Bodily sensations, internal and external. So internal, it could be like you're in a scenario and your heart starts racing, and then you interpret that your heart is racing is that you're scared, and then you say, I'm scared because I'm a coward. I'm a coward because I've never done anything with my life. I haven't done anything with my life because my dad said it wasn't going to happen for me, and my dad should be the ultimate say because he brought me into the world. And blah, 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 blah. Right? You're down this horrible spiral because your heart raced, right?
Yeah. So what happens is what we talk about in our with our clients is the sensation comes up, like you get that trigger, you get the alarm in the body, and then all of a sudden your mind starts to create stories as to why it's there, and you try to outthink it, and it's not going to work. And the solution always is to just get into the body and get into the breath and just notice the sensations themselves and completely get out of the story of it, which is easier said than done, but that's the solution.
Yeah. So that's the internal bodily sensation. But then there's external bodily sensations. Like you try to squeeze into a pair of pants, or you're trying to button your pants and you're like, damn it, just 2 months ago this fit better. And then boom, that sensation. Or somebody you're on a date with reaches over and touches your lower back, and all of a sudden you remember from childhood that was one of the ways your abuser started molesting you, is they touched that certain part of your back, and then boom, you've triggered off because of that bodily touch and all those insecurities of, here we go, I'm going to get taken advantage of, I'm just a body that people want to use, and all those spirals. And it can be as severe as a molestation memory coming back up, or it could be as benign of like, man, they're going to touch the rolls on my back, or my side love handles. They're gonna see I'm disgusting, and like all of a sudden that can trigger. So the tonality, the nonverbal, the facial expressions, thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future, bodily sensations, both internal and external. Those are some of the things that I feel like are triggering our insecurities.
Totally, and like we say to everybody, your triggers are not something to run away from. They're something for you to actually move towards as an indicator, as a window of opportunity for you to jump right in and do the healing work so that you can actually have greater intimacy. Because all of these insecurities, they all point to one thing, don't they? They destroy intimacy in our relationships and destroy self-esteem. And we're here. Why is this important? Is because our lives become more meaningful when we can share them with people in an authentic way. And our insecurities and our reluctance to actually move towards them and to deal with them and to confront them and to do courageous things are actually dissociating us from a really great experience with life.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the board behind you. It cuts off your happiness, your feeling of deserving love, and it cuts off your safety because you become your greatest enemy and you might take your own life. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, there is a reason why I have searched long and far and wide to figure out what is my contribution to this planet. And it's really to rid this world of insecurity. And
so
when I say that, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. So let's do that.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about the most damaging insecurities. We've talked about the triggers that do it. How do you rid the world of insecurity? How are you going to do that, Sean?
Yeah, so I've been in hot pursuit of it for at least the last 9 years. And it was a question that I would ask myself every day. How do we rid the world of insecurity? How do we rid the world of insecurity? I would get up and think about it. I would ask people. I would be reading. I found how very little literature and studies have been done on insecurity. There's all kinds of studies on cancer. There's all kinds of studies on depression. There's all kinds of studies on violence. But why aren't we studying the root cause of all of this, which is insecurity, in my opinion? And
100%.
finally, I came across it. I know exactly where I was. I got up early. It was like right before sunrise. I hopped out of my bed. I'm married with my wife. This is about 7 years ago. And I hopped out of my bed. I got in my wheelchair. I wheeled outside the house, went down the cul-de-sac. At the edge of our cul-de-sac, there is a place where you can watch the sunrise. And I'm watching the sunrise, and I love the sunrise. I'm not always up for the sunrise, but when I am, I feel amazing because I feel like it's a dawn of a new day, right? Start of something clean new. And as I'm watching the sunrise, I hear a very quiet, calm, grounding voice come from my heart. And it said, the cure to insecurity is self-care. And I was like, where is this coming from? What are we talking about? Am I having a hallucination? Am I having a stroke? Why am I hearing this voice? What does this mean? And it just said it again. The cure to insecurity is self-care. And almost like in the movie The Matrix, all of these files just started showing up in my mind of how every time in my life, every time in my clients' lives, when a person was the most insecure, they weren't at all paying attention to their self-care. They were neglecting all self-care. They weren't taking good care of their mind, their body, their spirit, their health, their wealth, their relationships. They were neglecting care. And then I could see every client that I had that had successes, every family and friend that I'd supported that turned their life around, and my own memories of being unstoppable and my insecurities not being there. It's when I was taking impeccable self-care. I had impeccable self-care. And that's when I raced back to the house. I woke my wife up and I said, baby, I got it. I figured it out. I cracked the code. I now know what I need to go share around the world for the rest of my life. And she said, what's that? I said, the cure to insecurity is self-care. Now keep in mind, she has not had her cup of coffee. She did not want to be woken up. And she says to me, no, I don't think that's it.
That's bullshit.
And I'm like, what? And it was such a life-changing moment because I really value my wife's opinion. She's brilliant. She's wise. She's just amazing human being. And this was the first time that I looked her back deep in the eyes and said, I'm going to prove it to you. And I didn't have any, well, is she right? My insecurities didn't make me question myself. I was immediately like, okay, cool. She's going to be the world's doubt on this for me. And if I can get Mindy to see this, I can get the world to see this, right? And after she had her coffee and I sat her down at the dining room table, we chatted at great length. And then I spent the next 8 years or 7 years, proving to her time and time again. And now she's around the world talking about this as well, using her words and her modalities.
So you're talking about self-care in the sense of exercise, meditation, eating right, all of these things like the habits and rituals, which, by the way, in our, I think it was episode number 2, we talked about un-F your nervous system. We talked all about those things and setting up within your nervous system a series of habits and rituals that help to regulate yourself. That's what you're talking about. Like when you're talking about self-care, you're not talking about just like, pedicures and hot baths.
I mean, they're part of them. Those are 2 examples, right? But those are 2 examples we usually shit on because we feel that they are superficial. I think that I feel that pedicures, manicures, hot baths are one of many rituals that for each of us, we have our own set of rituals. But whatever is going to do what my buddy Alex Sharfin says, reduce the pressure and noise. When the pressure and noise, so pressure's in the body and noise is in the head, right? When the pressure and the noise is low, insecurities aren't around. They remain dormant. And it's no different than like epigenetics. Are you familiar with that? With like biology and belief, right? So it's like the epigenetics. You don't have to turn on your genetics for all these diseases, but you have those switches inside of you. Same thing with your insecurities. You have switches to turn on to feel insecure. But if you live a life that keeps the pressure and noise down through impeccable self-care, you don't trigger those lights.
It's not driving the bus. Your insecurities or your ego is not driving the bus. The stress is, it's just this insecurity equals your ego, equals your defense mechanisms, equals what we call the dark passenger. That if you are paying attention and you're connected with yourself and you're taking care of yourself with your evening and morning rituals, which is what I, like to ascribe to. I'm about 80% with them. And the 20% when I don't, I totally notice my insecurities driving the bus, the ego driving the bus. So what a big breakthrough that was for you. This little voice that came inside and said, self-care, and that takes care of your insecurities. It kind of drowns them out. They're not running the show like they used to.
Yeah, so I'm going to do something right now to reduce the pressure and noise in myself.
There you go. That's it. Just drinking
Simply
water.
by hydrating is one of my self-care items. If I have 3 of these bottles a day of pure water with some electrolytes added, I am reducing more of the pressure and the noise. I am improving my self-care, but that's just one of many things.
Yeah.
I have a list. I have a list of about 16 things. I don't get them all done, but the more on the list that I do, the better. So in 2017, I went through a really dark time, and my insecurities were running the show, making bad decisions, lashing out, really dark. And I knew the only person that was going to save me was me.
Yeah.
And so I went to work on creating a system in 2018 that I tracked every single day how many of my self-care items. And then I tracked at the end of the day, how was my overall mood throughout the day? And of course, what did we find? On the days where self-care was higher, the mood was higher. On the days the self-care list was lower, less things were done, the more my mood was affected and I was in a negative slump.
And you're not as triggerable when you're fully resourced. We call it resourcing ourselves. And so basically, in a nutshell, these are the most damaging insecurities. There are triggers that trigger them, ranging from bodily sensations, internal, external, to voice and tonality, and nonverbal communication. But at the end of the day, they're always a part of all of us. And when we take action to the effect of filling our own cup each and every day, you can keep them at bay.
Absolutely. So can I give your audience a gift?
You bet.
Okay, so self-care is only one of 3 things that I find that you need to be doing to be unstoppable in your life, unstoppable in your dreams, unstoppable with your career. We spend a lot of time on self-care, but there's two other items that we don't have time to talk about. So I want to give you a gift. If you are interested in learning about what it takes, the 3 things that it takes to be unstoppable, go to theunstoppableformula.com. Theunstoppableformula.com. You'll get a free video course with me teaching all of this stuff you've been learning about self-care. So it's a great review. Plus these other 2 steps that I find that people that end up climbing the mountain, succeeding, getting the things that they ultimately want, they have to have these 3 things. And that is my gift to you at theunstoppableformula.com.
Beautiful. I just put the link in the comment section there. Sean, thank you. What can I tell you? I mean, I'm grateful. I do hope that you'll join us again. This is something that I'd like to make on a regular thing with you, and continue serving and the public with this very critical message. Thanks for sharing your gift to all of us, and give him some love, you guys. Give Sean some massive love for being here on the show with us before we close it down. Like, give him some love. Thank you so much, Sean. I'm just gonna fix something here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate everybody's time. If you were listening to this, hopefully something reached you personally, connected with you, and it would be my privilege, pleasure, and honor to connect with you again in the future.
Thank you so much, brother.
You bet, bud. Take care.
There you have it. Dr. Sean Stephenson, what an honor. What he talks about as insecurity, we call ego dark passenger, and it can be overcome. This is something that 100% of clients who are stuck in relationship limbo, not knowing if they should stay, they should go, disconnected from themselves, disconnected from their purposes, not really understanding which way to go. We take them through the exact process in a community that really is up to the same game. And it's critical that you don't allow those insecurities, those beliefs of, I don't deserve love, I don't deserve happiness and fulfillment, I don't deserve to be alive. They're actually impacting your relationship and your health and well-being. And as Sean shared, the foundation of it is self-care, absolutely. And regulating your nervous system, clearing your past victim story, learning how to dance with that dark passenger so it's not driving the bus. You can actually have it sitting silently in the passenger seat. You're aware, but it's constantly having you up-level yourself and challenge yourself to something greater. So what has been causing great insecurity in your life? Take an inventory and really decide how much longer you would like to continue allowing those things to stop you in achieving what you would love, to create the life that you desire. And it all comes on the other side of learning how to manage and be the one at cause of your own mind rather than having external things run it for you. That is the foundation of being trigger-proof. And trigger-proof doesn't mean trigger-less. It means being trigger-savvy and responsible for your triggers so that you can actually create health, relationships, and a life and purpose that you absolutely love. Please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. We release one on YouTube every single week. Grateful that you joined us. Wednesdays at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or early morning in Australia and late at night in Europe and Africa. We have some people who are kind of tuning in from there. It is such a pleasure for me to be able to share this knowledge with you. Let me know if you have any other questions, and I am here to hopefully create an episode about it or answer. Send me a direct message if you have any specific questions and you want us to look at your case directly. But otherwise, we will see you at the next perfect time. Thanks for being here.